Hello. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey y'all, Merry Christmas. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so happy to have you listening today. Thank you for tuning in each week and enjoying this time together with me. If you're brand new, I just want to say welcome and remind you to pay attention and listen to the very end of every episode. That's where we have our kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Well, Christmas is right around the corner. I cannot believe it's just a week away. And as I've probably mentioned a million times before, Christmas music is my absolute favorite thing. And so I thought maybe we could play a little game with Christmas music and see how well you know these songs. So we're going to play a little game called Christmas Songs by Another Name. So that means I'm going to say the title of a Christmas song, but I'm going to use synonyms. Do you know what synonyms are? Not like synonym rolls, that's cinnamon, is pronounced differently, but synonyms are words that mean the same thing as another word. So, for example, one of the titles might be Embellish the Corridors. Now, do you know which song I'm talking about? Which Christmas song would that be? Embellish the Corridors. Well, if you guess Deck the Halls, you're right. Embellish is to decorate, and corridors is another word for hallway. So there you go. Embellish the Corridors. Now you can start using that title instead of Deck the Halls. Okay, so that's how we play the game. I will give you the new title, and you tell me what the original title actually is. Are you ready? All right, you can compete with whoever you're listening with right now, or you compete with yourself and see if you can figure out all of these on your own. Ready? Here we go. The first one is The Pint-Sized Percussionist Lad. Which song is that? Do you know? The Pint-Sized Percussionist Lad. Well, if you guess Little Drummer Boy, you are correct. Good job. 1,000 points if you got that right. All right, number 2. Here we go. Let's see. The next one is Assemble all ye who believe. Assemble all ye who believe. Do you know what that one is? You're right. It's O Come All Ye Faithful. Good job. Another 1,000 points if you got that right. Good job. All right, here's the third one. Ready? Trio of Monarchs. Trio of Monarchs. Which one is that? Yes, We Three Kings. You are right. Another 1,000 points. You're doing really, really well. Okay, here's the fourth one. Ready? Exuberance directed to the planet. Exuberance directed to the planet. Exuberance directed to the planet. You are correct. It is Joy to the World. That's right. Good job. Another 1,000 points. I'm just giving away thousands right now. All right, let's see. Let's do the next one. This one's funny. Okay, ready? Sterling Dingers. That was fun to say. Let me say it again. Ready? Sterling Dingers. All right. If you guess Silver Bells, you are correct. There's another 1,000 points for you. Good job. All right, 2 more. All right, here's number 6. Ready? Departed in a bovine feeding trough. Departed in a bovine feeding trough. Anybody know what that is? You are correct. It is Away in a Manger. How did you guess that so fast? Good job. Okay, here's our last one. Are you ready? 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. without noise. 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. without noise. Which one do you think that is? Well, if you guessed Silent Night, I'm going to give you an extra 2,000 points. So you did a great job. Tally up your points and let me know what you got. That was fun. Speaking of Christmas songs, I am so excited to talk to my guest today. He has written a Christmas song that has an amazingly interesting story behind it, and I'm so excited to learn more about this. My guest today is Elias Dummer. He co-founded and fronted one of Canada's most acclaimed worship bands, the City Harmonic. As the group's principal songwriter, he helped pen hits such as Mountaintop and Manifesto, which actually served as the theme song for 2011's National Day of Prayer and was the walk-up music for Major League Baseball player Seth Smith. Elias released his solo debut, The Work Volume 1, in 2019 and was named Breakthrough Artist of the Year at the 2020 Covenant Awards. With more than 65 million streams to date, Dummer's music, both as a solo artist and with a City Harmonic, appears on charts in more than 30 countries around the world in 2020 alone. That's incredible. He has had 3 new singles this year and is previewing his next full-length project set for release in 2022. Elias and his wife live in Tennessee with their 5 kids. So here is my conversation with Elias Dummer. Elias, thank you so much for being on the Collide Kids podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Kristen. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. And so you're from Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Originally. Yep. So did they say Merry Christmas in Canada?
They do.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's
okay.
Yeah. Very similar to here.
Yeah. It feels like a foreign country, but I know it's really not. You're just our neighbors. You're just a little bit north of us. So
that's right. A few quirks, but we get along.
That's good. Would you just introduce yourself today and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name is Elias Dummer. It is as bad as it sounds. And I am a singer-songwriter, originally from Canada. I used to be in a band called the City Harmonic, but I'm now putting out music under my own name. Songs like Enough and 1914, Christmas Truce, and The Gospel is Rest, and all kinds of stuff like that. So, yeah.
Very cool. And you have a family?
I do. My wife and I have been married for 18 years, and we have 5 kids together who are lovely, depending on the day.
That's amazing. So you are well-versed in talking to kids. If you've got 5 kids, you know how to do this today, right?
I have plenty of experience, and I'm not sure much expertise.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Well, before we get started into your story, I'd really love to hear a joke. We always like to put our guests on the spot and ask them to share a joke because this is a podcast for kids. So what do you got for us?
Yeah. It's funny, my name is Dummer. And so I sort of tried to argue earlier that perhaps I should just use my own name as a joke because it's pretty bad. So my name is Elias Dummer. And my mom never thought, that my name, she called me Eli, literally amounted to an insult. Eli is dumber. So I sort of had this way as a kid of beating them to the punch and sort of making fun of myself. And instead, I'll just do this. I'll just tell a really bad dad joke, and we'll live with that. But
okay.
Here's one. When does a joke become a dad joke?
I don't know.
When it becomes apparent.
Oh, there you go. Very well done.
Yes.
When it becomes apparent. Now we have to explain. There's so many like synonym. What is that called? When 2 words sound the same.
Oh yeah, I cannot remember.
See, I'm going back to grammar school. I don't remember that part of it. But
speaking of grammar school, I've got one more.
Okay,
that might tie in better to my last name being Dummer. What is the name of the smartest dinosaur?
I don't know. What's the name of the smartest dinosaur?
The thesaurus.
He knows a lot of words. You're right.
It's bad. It's bad. I'm sorry. Okay.
This is great. This is good. We like those corny dad jokes. Good job. Well, okay. So let's talk about your band because you were in a band called City Harmonic. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you guys get started?
Yeah, we have a really strange story. So we were a worship band that came from a bunch of churches working together in our hometown. And it had been a city with a lot of problems, and churches started to work together and pray together and really help each other out in a really, really big way. And it made a huge difference in our town. And so our band came together because we were from these churches, these little churches, and started singing together with students. And these students would go out all day and help people in the streets and serve in the neighborhood, and then come back together and we'd worship together. And so, if you listen to the City Harmonic, it's loud, it's fun, it's energetic, it's passionate and excited. And that all comes from these students kind of working together for Jesus.
That's amazing. And was that in Canada, or is that
Yes,
in Nashville? Yeah. Okay. So in Canada.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so just, you guys would all come together to play together. Did everyone play the same instrument, or?
Yeah,
how did that work out?
I played piano and guitar, and I sang all the songs, and I wrote most of the songs. And then my buddy Eric played bass, although he plays a lot of instruments. And then Aaron was a friend of mine, played guitar, and Josh played the drums. And so we wrapped up just a few years ago, but we had a couple songs that, were really big on the radio in the States and around the world, really. And we got to travel the world and see all kinds of crazy places and do things we never thought we would do. So it's really, really was an incredible journey, and is the one that brought us to Nashville, where I've been now for a bunch of years.
That's amazing. How did you know that you wanted to do music? Like, starting out, were you a musical kid, or was that something you discovered later?
No, I was almost always a musical kid. My parents have this image of me, a photo of me standing up against the television with big headphones on my head in a diaper, dancing to Michael Jackson's Thriller, just like bobbing along. So I was always into music, and I was in choirs and stuff. But when I was a little kid, I actually wanted to be a writer. And then it wasn't until high school that I sort of changed my mind and thought, I'm going into music, and that's going to be my thing.
There you go. And it was. Look at
it
you.
Worked out
Good
okay.
Job.
Yeah, I did the thing.
You did the thing you set out to do. That's hard, actually. So that's pretty good.
Sometimes it's true.
So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about Christmas, because you have this new song that's just come out, right? About a story in history that I've heard before. I find it fascinating. So I'd love for you to just tell the story behind the song 1914.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I heard this story years and years ago myself. And I would sort of talk about it in an offhand way, or just kind of throw it in there. And I realized people didn't know about this as I would talk about it. So in the First World War, it was Christmas Eve, and they were in the trenches. In the First World War, if you don't know, they would kind of dig these holes in the ground and hide, and they'd be kind of poking over the top of these holes to do war. And it was pretty dark. It was really a sad, hard time. And so somehow, of course, these are both Christian armies in the First World War, and they're, doing what they're doing. And at one point, a group of Germans raised up a Christmas tree over the top and started singing a little Christmas carol in German. And then the English and French soldiers started to sing along in their languages. And slowly but surely, across all of the kind of front lines where all the soldiers are coming up against each other, at the front lines, there became this unofficial ceasefire where they stopped fighting for Christmas and Christmas Eve. And then they eventually, in multiple places, met in the middle. They were exchanging gifts between each other. They played sports. From what I understand, the generals were mad about it, but these soldiers just made peace that day and hung out. And yes, eventually they went back to fighting, and that's tragic. But I think there's really something special about what that says about Christmas.
Yeah.
It sort of reminds us that Jesus came, and he was called the Prince of Peace. That's can't be overstated. Jesus came to bind us together in him. And I think it's pretty remarkable that even in one of the worst moments in human history,
right?
In one of the worst seasons in human history, that all these young guys remembered that and lived it in a truly remarkable way.
That's amazing. I can't imagine what it's like to be a soldier. I've never been a soldier before.
Yeah,
I don't know what that's like. And especially back then when they didn't have all the communication and all the different things. So just all that they knew was the days of the week, or like the calendar day had come up for Christmas, and they're away from their families. So to share that moment, what do you think that speaks about Christmas? What do you think that tells us about what Christmas is all about?
It's funny. Sometimes we can think of seeing family as a tough thing or a good thing, or how, depending on the family. And a lot of families struggle with this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think it is a reminder, and it's kind of great that we celebrate Christmas with family, because it sort of reminds us of that exact thing. Like, God brings us together. That's what Jesus does. He forgives us of our brokenness. And he models that for us too, and asks us to do that for others in the Lord's Prayer, right? I mean, that's that. So I think there's this idea of like that peacemaking and unity, and how incredible it is. Just like we saw in my band, and just as we see in the Christmas Truce, and just as we hopefully and see in every church that we're a part of, that there's an incredible power when Jesus brings us together to work together for the good of others, and to celebrate that moment. So to me, I think that's what Christmas is about. And I think it's just such an incredible reminder of what Jesus does in us.
Absolutely. I think we so often get caught up in the decorations and the Christmas gifts, what we want to get, what we're giving to other people. And that's not the point. Like, what God has done for us is something we should be extending to people, not just at Christmas, but anytime.
Totally.
And so this story of these soldiers that were on enemy lines coming together, I think that really kind of helps us to think about those things and put it in perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What are some things, what was it about this story that made you want to write a song about it? We'll be right back after this. Raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media, and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
Well, just I mean, it sort of really resonated with my own story in my hometown, and I think that was pretty cool. But also just the symbolism of it, what it represents, really speaks to me. My own great uncle fought in World War II. Mm-hmm. And he, of course, doesn't have the same sort of story from the Second World War, but just knowing and hearing his stories of what they went through, the idea that those guys in the middle of that horrible situation could stand and link arms, I think is a great symbol for our society today, and where we're at, even as Christians or as families, and sort of, if they can do it, surely we can too.
Yeah. And I love that the song kind of reminds us like of the songs that they sang, because I love Christmas music.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite genre of music. So
yeah. So you're like mid-October, pre-Halloween. Go
absolutely.
For it. Yeah.
Why not? I mean, I can celebrate. I can pass out candy to people that come to my house for trick-or-treating while I'm listening to Jingle Bells.
That's
I'm
right.
capable
That's right.
of that. Yeah. But I love Christmas music, and I love the old Christmas carols and the hymns that we would sing. And so your song kind of talks about that. What were some of the songs that they would sing while they were spending time together?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Silent Night and O Come All Ye Faithful. Partly they sang hymns that existed both in German and in English. So
Okay.
I think that was part of it. And I believe O Holy Night too was reported. So those three have been around a long time. And although I suppose I could be wrong about the last one, but I do know for sure that O Come All Ye Faithful and Silent Night were sung in English, which would be really neat to hear people singing in English and German in harmony. Sounds really cool to me, although maybe a bunch of soldiers doing it might not be so pretty. It depends.
Well, and across the distance too. Like imagine like you hear off into the distance one of your favorite Christmas carols.
Yeah.
And you just start singing along. I've seen a video of this guy. He was in his apartment and he was playing the piano, and then he stopped because he was like shuffling papers or something.
Yeah.
And the person that was in another apartment near him started continuing the song they were playing.
Oh,
So
that's so funny.
They were like duetting through their walls. And so,
Yeah.
and then he learned the story of this guy that had just, gone through a tragedy in his life.
Wow.
So the fact that they were playing together, even though they really didn't know each other, I just think that speaks to the power of music as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, in just trying to, ultimately it's connecting with other people, right? I mean, the sign that the Germans held up at the beginning of this thing, it said something like, shoot, we know shoot. So there's like something, it doesn't have to be amazing to make an incredible impact and a connection with people too.
Yeah. The first Christmas card was.
That's right. That's a, shoot, we know shoot.
Yeah. And I think about that too. Like, okay, the people that I don't like very much, or the people that I don't know at all, the people that I feel like I might be against, I can't imagine singing songs with them. You know what I mean? Like what incredible character these soldiers had, and the courage they had to, be vulnerable in that moment.
Oh, totally. And I think that's the sort of people that Jesus is asking us to be. Mm-hmm. As people who follow him. I mean, that's the sort of people that we're called to be in the world, and whether that's at school or our own families or whatever. And, I don't do it perfectly always, just ask my kids, but that's certainly I think the heart of all of this.
Yeah. Well, I just love this song. I encourage anybody that's listening to go check it out. It's called 1914, The Christmas Truce, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And then look up the story about it, because I think that would be really interesting as a family to read that together. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about celebrating Christmas. What are some things that you love about celebrating Christmas?
I love that, at least here in the States and back home in Canada, the whole world kind of shuts down a little bit and everybody's expectations go away. And there's sort of this genuine like off time where everybody's together. Even as a kid, that was one of my favorite things. I mean, I think I can remember one or two gifts that I got. One time I acted really poorly. I was really young and my parents didn't get me the right thing and I yelled about it like I was really mean, and I'm embarrassed of that still. I don't remember any of I remember the gift I'm embarrassed about. But the thing I really, really loved was the day after Christmas. In Canada, they call this Boxing Day. Mm-hmm. And the day after Christmas, my family would always go to a big family gathering of my mom's sisters, and she had 5 sisters. So there's this huge family gathering, 40 people, 50 people, all crammed into a house, hanging out. And to me, that's what Christmas was. I really loved that thing where everybody you love is in one place and hanging out, and you're catching up, and and I don't even think there was a gift exchange. It was really just people and connecting. And I thought that was just amazing. And so we try to produce that in our own house. Obviously we live away from family. Our family's all up in Canada. So we'll have them down and we'll spend time as a family, and we really kind of play these like word games with each other. We have something called the name game that we play when we have a crowd, and little things like that are really, really special to us.
Yeah. I love just the making memories together and spending time, because you're forced to, everything's shut down. So
that's right. There's nothing else to do.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, tell us a little bit about your faith in God. Like, how has being a musician or being a songwriter really helped your faith in God grow?
Wow. And well, for me, music has always or long been a really important way to pray. Mm-hmm. And that's really the kind of song I try to write usually, is I approach songs as giving someone else words to pray when they sing it. And hopefully that's the experience they have, that they might meet God in some way through the song. And that has always been true for me. So I put a lot of work and thought and heart into what goes into the songs, because I feel responsible in a way for what happens as on the other end of it. But songs themselves have always played a really important role in my faith. Mm-hmm. And in fact, my favorite Bible verse, which, I hesitate to say, but my favorite Bible verse is actually, I learned through a worship song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people like that. They'll be reading the Bible and they're like, I know the melody to this verse. Right?
That's right. That's right.
I can sing this while I'm reading
it.
That's
right. Yeah. So mine was a song by Matt Redman. He wrote a song called "The Father's Song" years and years ago. And I'd had my family had a rough time when I was a little kid, and this really spoke to me. And it was Zephaniah 3:17. So it was, "The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In his love, he will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you with singing." And I think it's really cool because we think of like singing to God, but we never really think about God as singing over us in some like a proud papa, you know? And that really spoke to me.
Yeah, I love that verse. That's a great verse and something to hold on to for sure. That picture that God sings over us and he delights in us.
Exactly.
I think so often it's really easy to think that God just gets disappointed in us all the time.
Yeah, right.
But he really doesn't. The Bible tells us so much about how God just intervenes and provides and wants us to have that relationship because he loves us so much.
Totally.
Well, this has been such a good conversation. I really enjoyed learning about the song and talking to you today. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How can our listeners find your music?
Yes. Well, if you go on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, if you're allowed, you can look up Elias Dummer or the City Harmonic everywhere there, or you can just go to eliasdummer.com. You can find everything there.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely recommend that they check your music out because it's very good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being on the show today. And I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too.
It was so great meeting him, and I loved hearing his story. I loved learning about the City Harmonic and how this band came together from all these different churches. That's such a beautiful idea. I think that would be neat for a lot of churches to try out, maybe. Maybe a band will come out of it. I don't know. And I love learning the story behind any song. So this song that he has just recently come out with for Christmas is called 1914, The Christmas Truce. And it's the story we talked about today of the soldiers making peace on the battlefield on Christmas, singing together. It's just a powerful story and a beautiful song. I hope you will check it out. I love when he was reminding us that Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and he came to bind us together in him. Jesus wants us to have peace between each other and peace in ourselves. Those are the things that he gives us. And I love that Eli shared his favorite Bible verse from Zephaniah 3. It's just this great reminder that God delights in you and he sings over you. Well, I really do encourage you to check out Eli's music. It's so good. So be sure to check it out wherever you get your music. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So check this out from my friend Cole.
Hi, my name is Cole. How do the elves clean Santa's sleigh? They use sanitizer.
Sanitizer. I love that joke. Thank you, Cole. That was awesome. Well, hey, I'd love to hear your favorite joke or maybe an encouraging quote that you like from a book or a movie, or maybe you have a favorite Bible verse that you want to share. You can find information about how to send that to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. Hey, would you like to support the podcast? Here's a few ways you can do that. Be sure that you subscribe and follow this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever app you're using. And be sure to leave a rating and a review. It really does help other people find about the show just by you leaving your review. So thank you so much for those of you that have done that, and keep that up. You can also share this episode with friends and family and tell them why you like to listen. Or you can go to my website, thecollidekidspodcast.com, and click the link that says buy me a coffee. That's a great way to support me as well. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support. Well, I hope that you guys have a very Merry Christmas. I know we are just a few weeks away from 2022, which is kind of incredible to think about. So as you are celebrating, as you're enjoying this time with your friends and family, I hope that you'd find peace. And I hope that you look to the Prince of Peace to give you that. Well, in case no one has reminded you today, I would love to be the one to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.